Welcome to Everything is Dead, the show where we challenge the myths of B2B and uncover how go-to-market professionals are thriving in channels everyone says are dead. Really excited to have Jared Dietz from NOOKS on the show today. Jared's a cold calling expert, was referred by a lot of people who I reached out to when I asked about an expert on the topic of cold calling. Jared, welcome to the show today.
Nice to meet you, man.
I feel like cold calling is often brought up as one of those things where you get executives that say, I never pick up the phone. I don't know how people are cold calling, but NOOKS is building a wonderful business around it. You're having success doing it. So if I said to you, cold calling's dead, how would you react to that statement? What would your response be?
I would first dive into the industry and persona that they're calling into. I'm going on my fourth year being an SDR. Cold calling has always been my best channel. I think people say wild takes on LinkedIn these days just to get any attention that they can because that's like the trendy thing to do. But I think at the end of the day, they could change deliverability over email, social selling's in, social selling's out. I think the one thing that always stays consistent is that everyone has a cell phone and people are always going to pick up. So I think most people that are saying cold calling is dead are probably just doing it wrong. And that plays into connect rates and the SCP that, or the dialer that you use and phone numbers. And there's so many little aspects that play into cold calling and the nuances there. But for me, because I'm coming up on a year at NOOKS in January, I probably booked 85% of my pipeline from the phones using NOOKS. And then I was a customer for 2 years before I joined. I'm going on 3 of my 4 years as a rep using NOOKS. In all 4 years, the phone has always been my best channel. So I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yeah, I love it, mate. And I think what you called out is absolutely spot on in terms of people that say cold email is dead are the ones that are probably just mass spray into a list of random email addresses. They're not sorting out their infrastructure ahead of time. I think conclusively every episode I've had of this with different tactics, different strategies have all come back to if you do it well, you can succeed. It just takes a bit more time, effort, energy than maybe you're putting in at the moment. So that like dovetails into the next question. And you already mentioned like some things that people need to get right or things that you think are critical for cold calling to be a successful channel. So maybe walk me through what are some strategies or tools that help you to succeed with cold calling, even right now at NOOKS or previously in other roles?
One, it'd be NOOKS. I'd be stupid to not share that. Just my first role, fresh out of college, I was calling through outreach. And it'd probably take me 3 hours a day making 100 calls because you have to listen to the ringtone, listen to the voicemail, log the voicemail, do the disposition, sentiment, rinse and repeat. And you're doing that on top of it's just distracting, doing manual tasks at repetition at that scale. Whereas like NOOKS, you can do the same amount without losing the strategic nature of utilizing all of your account research, notes, close lost, intent signals. You get to use all of that while having more conversations and less time. And then that gives you time back in the rest of your day for everything else that most SDRs probably already feel like they don't have enough time for. That's number one. That's a game changer. Two, and I don't want to make this just, I'm pitching NOOKS to the world, but one of the features internally is reps get 10 phone numbers. We register those phone numbers with the company, and reps can choose the area codes that they want to get those phone numbers from. So it gives people the ability to play around with the numbers that they're using, time of day, which for me, I've got a lot of strategy there that helps with, I know certain prospects might pick up a New York City number versus a San Fran number, that sort of thing. Just the ability to benefit from the efficiencies and just higher connect rates with NOOKS. That makes my life easier. Also, like the virtual sales floor, I'm always getting better helping coach the reps on my team. I'm helping onboard because I'm a team lead. I'm helping onboard reps on my team. So I'm getting to teach all day while I'm also doing the exact same thing as them. Just constantly reinforcing the why behind me using my own tool, my own like platform to sell the platform.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things like, let's view this through the lens of somebody that maybe doesn't have access to NOOKS right now.
Yeah.
And I think 100% the future is tools like NOOKS just from the efficiency standpoint. I don't think there should ever be a world where you're sat there manually entering phone numbers and calling. It just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. But let's just say if we break down a good cold call, what makes a good cold call, how you close business from a cold call. You mentioned something interesting, which was like account research and making sure that what you're actually talking to people about is relevant and like how to talk based on information or research.
I think first and foremost for any successful SDR, you have to understand your ICP. And then I think it's diving deeper into look at your customers, look what's closed, use them as like a use case, and then go after their competitors, go after similar personas at those accounts that with the ideas around maybe similar pains on why you signed that customer that's similar in the first place. I think understanding your ICP is like the most important thing at the end of the day, because it all starts with your prospecting and the quality of the accounts and the people that you're reaching out to, because that's going to work its way into, are my emails landing? Can I chat with them over LinkedIn and social selling? Are they going to have the pains that I'm able to discover when I cold call? You have to be going after the right accounts to begin with. For me, I like to look at career pages to see if they're hiring SDRs, because that tells me, one, whether they're cold calling. I might get an inside scoop on their tech stack. If they're calling through Outreach, SalesLoft, maybe a competitor. And then I like to look at customer stories and case studies, because oftentimes companies will put the quote and then the name and title of the person that said the quote at a customer. And that's a cheat code for me to quickly figure out what titles they might be calling and what they're using to call. So you got to figure out, depending on your ICP and your value prop, how can you get crafty and just gathering that important info. But for me personally in NOOKS today, because we also have really good product market fit, I don't have to do as much research as maybe someone that's selling to the security or IT space, or even when I used to sell to engineers before, and I have to do a lot of like deeper research before I go call a VP of engineering or a CTO. That's going to be way more technical than a sales development manager or director or VP.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And I think actually, again, there's some commonality between writing good cold email, to your point, between even paid ads. I had a conversation with somebody around paid ads, and it all comes back to really understanding your target customer, because only then can you understand the messaging that will work, like the pain point that you're solving for. And so
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because actually, if you break it down, it's fairly simplistic in the way of, if I was an SDR and I don't know my ICP, well, one, the manager's not done a good enough job of training, but secondarily, like I'd be just slack in marketing and being like, look, like I really want to dig into our ICP. Who do we sell to? That kind of activity is easy, I think, for everybody to do today, to actually get an understanding of ICP pain point and how your product fits in. In terms of like when you're coaching, because I know that you're an interesting case because you've cold called and you've had success, and now you're coaching or training people to be better at cold calling. When it comes to like on phone, I don't know, like how they speak on the phone fundamentally and getting more talking. Any tips there around like strategies that could help, again, new SDRs that may be listening to this? How do you get more confident on the phone? Is it just making more dials?
I think so. When I started my career, I've gone by two like mottos. They're both extremely similar. It's keep moving forward and fail fast, learn fast. Like the richest people in the world, they've had failed businesses, and then they've had businesses that's made them millions and billions of dollars. I think as a rep, you got to get the reps in on the phone. You got to get that experience, and that just comes over time. When that like gives you confidence. Confidence plays into how your tone comes across. So it's like the more you do it, the better you will get. You just need to take that leap of faith and believe in yourself. And then I think it's diving into your opener. Okay, you've gotten through the opener. How are you pushing past that busy objection? Because everyone's always busy. You're not expecting my call. Okay, now you're past that busy objection. How quickly are you identifying pain? Once you've identified pain, are you diving deeper to give yourself a layup when you talk about your pitch later on? So I think there's a flow that you have to master when it comes to cold calling. But for me, I think the most important thing that I try to do is to call my prospects. I'm talking to a friend to keep it as conversational and the least amount of, I don't know how to say this properly. I don't want it to come off as transactional. I want to keep it conversational. I'm talking to a friend. So that's how I've always approached cold calling. But yeah, you gotta do it
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I was like, and again, I think we have people from a lot of different roles listening to this show. So I think there'll be SDRs that are like, cool, I can do that. In the management seat, so I'm an SDR manager, right? And my team aren't performing on the phones. What are some things that you would be telling them to look at? What are some strategies? What are some tactics that you're using? And those, because I saw a post the other day that the whole every team, like every member of your team almost is crushing it quota wise. So outside of, again, the tool probably is a large reason of that, right? Like the platform that they're using, that you're eating your own dog food. You must be doing a good job from like a management standpoint, coaching employees, etc. And so what would you be like fact finding from an SDR manager seat to actually get those reps performing at a higher level? What are some of the things you'd be trying?
I think what I've always done when I join a new org is one, I always identify who the top rep is, and I just do a deep dive into their calls, learn their talk tracks so that I can morph it into what fits my personality and style when I cold call. So I think of like a football team, right? You're going to watch your opponent's game tape before that big championship game. I think during your ramp period, there's obviously whatever onboarding plan your manager had, or like your manager or director has in place set for you, but it's also on you to invest that time into talk tracks. What is the team doing? And I think Nook specifically, outside of the onboarding process, the sales floor just gives reps the ability to do that live every single day, where we have a week of onboarding and then week 2 reps are on the phones. And I want to say at least 80% of our new hires book their first meeting within their first or second day on the phones. And that's just because on top of their laundry list of to-dos, they're listening to that call library and they're in that sales floor hearing the team talk in real time. And then when someone gets off a call, they can ask questions. And I think the hardest part of being remote is that we're humans. We need to collaborate, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. It's always important to lean on people that have the experience to learn as fast as possible. And then we just make reps go live. And that's where I'm like, just get live, fail fast, learn fast, get better, absorb as much as you can, and just be fearless, because it's someone telling you yes or no on the phone. And at the end of the day, you're still going to go to sleep the same way. And you're not going to be thinking at night, oh, Jimmy hung up on me at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
You're going to be tired going to bed, right? So it's the little things that I think people overthink, where you just got to get your hands dirty and get after it.
Love it, man. Yeah, I think you're totally spot on. And again, I feel that there's commonality across every go-to-market tactic in terms of trial and error and pushing through, right? Like cold email, even if you're writing 50 personalized emails, you're probably going to get 2 responses and 48 are going to be, ignored. And it's just having that I think discipline's the key word, right? The discipline just to follow the process, get a little bit there every day, to your point, learn, coach, etc. Same thing with even stuff like, I don't know, freaking social content, right? Like some posts will hit, some posts will miss, but it's like just learning and iterating, I think, is where you ultimately get that little bit better. Moving over to, I guess, the mistakes that you see people commonly make. And I think this is another interesting question to ask you specifically, because when you're onboarding people to Nooks, I'm sure there's a whole process of the discovery piece, which is like, what are you using to cold call them? What are your connect rates? Like all that type of stuff. What are some of the common mistakes that you're hearing in the market that like people are getting wrong fundamentally when it comes to cold calling, that maybe people listening to this are also making these kind of common mistakes?
Yeah, I think with like one with sales, it's half of it is just timing.
Yeah.
I'd say what we consider luck is really just timing. And so I could be chasing an account, and then through our account ownership rules, it drops from my name. Someone could pick it up and book the same guy I've been trying for the last 2 months the next day. And he answers for the first time. And I could be mad, but I'm rooting my team on there. I think mistakes that I see is often asking questions that are going to set you up for a yes, no, rather than something that's going to be open-ended. In my opener, I love asking a bucket question where it's, hey, Ben, I'm talking to other sales managers. I'm hearing one of three things. Either A, connect rates are low, your reps just aren't getting enough connects with prospects. B, it's more of a conversion rate issue where they could just use more coaching and enablement to get better on the phones. And then C, it's just the way that they dial is just super manual and inefficient. If you were to stack rank those in order of like most to least important for your team, like where do you think you'd land? And by doing that, that kind of sets me up for there's 8 different things that Nooks can help teams do. By having someone stack rank, that gives me an idea of what pain should I dive into more to give myself that layup at the end when I pitch Nooks. Whereas if someone says, hey, Ben, is your team facing low connect rates? If the manager I'm calling thinks that their 4% connect rate is good, then I just screwed myself.
Yeah,
So
because I'm putting the phone down.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like you got to master the opener, but then like your first real question has to be something open-ended, driving towards pain. Otherwise, you're just selling yourself short and you're limiting your conversations that you're able to have.
Yep.
So I
Yeah.
think that's like the biggest mistake that I see when people start cold calling.
I love it, mate. I love it. Yeah. And I think that's one takeaway that people can have. And I love these conversations because people will get a tactic from people like you who know what they're doing. I think even if they go with that piece, which is like, whenever you're about to ask a question, think to yourself, is this gonna hamstring me if they answer no? And fundamentally,
Yeah.
if you ask that, again, it keeps the conversation going, allows you to dig deeper, and obviously create more pain or find out more pain. I love that. Like I said, I think from my side, I love these conversations because I think there's a couple of tactical takeaways, and I'll replay them back to you and see if there's anything else that you would add in addition. I think fundamentally, to start off with, you've been very big on the tooling aspect, and I agree. Like whether you're using Nooks or whether you're using another platform, if you're still there manually dialing people, that's probably the first thing that you're doing wrong fundamentally, because you're not able to do it at scale. Reps are going to hate doing it, and fundamentally, it's not going to be an effective channel. And then secondarily, I think from your side, you mentioned a few things around account research and knowing your ICP, a little bit of the mental side of being an SDR and cold calling around getting a little bit better and pushing through. And then finally, the actual cold call itself, asking open-ended questions as much as possible to drive towards pain. Anything else that you would add as like a final takeaway for people listening to this? Hey, cold calling's not working for us. I'd love to improve. Like anything else you'd be given as advice?
I think the number one thing outside of just like routine and discipline for the SDR role is just doing your absolute best to detach from the outcome of everything in the role. Whether it's I could spend 20 minutes writing the most personalized, perfect email ever. They're the best fit in my mind, and I land in spam, or they say not interested, and it's like a slap in the face. Or I could botch my first message on LinkedIn trying to social sell them and just get some sort of. There's a lot of ways to screw up in this job. There's a lot of rejection. I think removing, detaching from the outcome and just focusing on controlling what you can control. I can control the research that I'm doing, who I reach out to, the channels that I do, the experiments that I try. I control my inputs. That's what matters at the end of the day. Because like you've seen the posts, everyone's like AI will replace SDRs. I think that's bullshit. I think SDRs that utilize AI to make their job easier will replace the generic SDR, and then you'll eventually see super high, like 6-figure paying SDR jobs out there that are already popping up.
I actually agree with you wholeheartedly. Like my viewpoint of AI has always been, how does it save time? How does it elevate roles fundamentally? And I think the same is in customer support. Customer support is going to be AI is going to be prevalent in every customer support team. What it will probably do is remove the tier one transactional type customer support agents, but the ones that are left are going to be more strategic, command higher salaries, and actually be more value add. And I agree with you. I actually think it's going to take away a lot of the fluff from the SDR job and leave people in those positions to just be toll hunters and close a bunch of deals. Yeah, I love that.
I think my last piece of advice would be honestly just post on LinkedIn. As cringy as some of my posts like seem in my head, it's human nature to overthink a lot of the times. And I don't really write a lot of emails these days. So I genuinely like posting because one, it helps me just build my network. I get to connect with more people, have like different conversations. But two, it's just another creative outlet. And SDR specifically, you really have nothing to lose and everything to gain by posting. Even like you mentioned right in the beginning, Olivia, this is day 2 for her at NOOKS. I met her through LinkedIn just because I kept seeing her content. I was like, okay, I should connect to this girl. She does Airbnb. I travel out of my bus full time. So like we connected on like the human level. And then after a couple months of chatting, it was like, oh, we've got an open role. I can get you like an intro to my boss. And now she got in there and it's like all of that happened from her just making one post. So it's write that post. You've got nothing to lose and everything to
Well, yeah.
gain.
Do you know what's interesting about what you just said is like whether you're cold emailing or cold calling, if you're a familiar face on LinkedIn, right, and people have seen your content, have read your content, have interacted with your content, guess what? If you land in their inbox from a cold email or you cold call them and you say, hey, I'm Jared from NOOKS. Wait, Jared from NOOKS. Like I've seen some of your content on LinkedIn, right? So I think that's the underlying piece which people don't take into consideration is you build up this social profile, people trust you more. And so when you do cold outreach, it's a softer landing in either people's inboxes or voicemails fundamentally as well, right?
Yeah, it's social proof at the end of the
Yeah.
day too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Jared, really appreciate you coming on the show, mate. I think you've given a bunch of really tactical tips and tricks. Anybody that hasn't heard of NOOKS, be sure to check NOOKS out. And Jared, like you mentioned, posts a lot of valuable content on LinkedIn, so you can find him there. Jared, anything else you'd like to leave the audience with, or is that you for now?
I think the last thing I would say is obviously you brought up the funding in the beginning, but we're always hiring. Our SDR team's growing. We're hiring an SDR manager so I can offload some of my team lead work onto a real manager. So if you know how to cold call, and I also answer every cold call I get if I'm not in a meeting.
Dude,
Cold
once you get
call.
prospected by thousands of people now, mate.
Hey, I don't know where, but I know my phone number's out there. Because I get at least 2 or 3 a day. But yeah, man, I think the hardest part of joining a new org is trying to figure out is quota attainable, is there product market fit, what's the persona like to cold call. I've been at 4 orgs. This has been the best year of my life. I don't have really any complaints about the company, leadership, anything. So if you're looking for a role, it's definitely the place to be. I like to say, if you watch The Office and you know that scene where Andy is, I wish I knew I was in the good old days when I was in the good old days, that's where we are right now.
Love it. Love it. That's I'm sure HR are going to pay you the recruitment bonus as well after this, hopefully. But yeah, everybody, thanks for tuning into another episode and we'll catch you on the next one.
All right.